Hi and welcome back to the channel. I did notice on my last video, which was the Dark Side of the Moon live, it's kind of interesting. I had quite a few comments saying, how surprising and interesting or whatever of you to be reviewing a live album. And I'm kind of quite surprised to see those comments, really. I've got quite a lot of live albums and I love live music and everything else. But anyway, that just sort of amused me slightly, because what am I doing today? I'm talking about a live album. Or maybe more specific, a BBC broadcast, which is kind of live, although some of them will be live in the studio, so to speak. Anyway, so this BBC broadcast, it's a recent release. It's only been out a couple of weeks. It's available as a triple live album, obviously, which this is, and as a CD, which I think there might be 5 discs in the CD set. I mean, I just, I'm a vinyl man at heart, as you all know. So, this is the one that I had to buy. I don't really feel the need to get the whole BBC set, but I'll run through exactly what you get here and why this is of specific interest to me. So, first of all, as I say, it's a triple album. Very nice cover, as you can see. Folds out, all very beautiful. And if we've got here, let's show you. So, in the first part of the gatefold, disc 1, and this is we've got the musical box, Stagnation, Harlequin, Harold the Barrel, Get 'Em Out by Friday, Watcher of the Skies, Dancing with the Moon at Night, and the Carpet Crawlers. So all Gabriel era stuff, and this is all with mostly with, forget the last 2 tracks, this is all with Peter Gabriel on vocals. So we've got the musical box is from the BBC in Concert series, and real committed Genesis fans will likely know that there's been 2, to my knowledge, maybe 3 BBC in Concert, 3 actually, I think, BBC in Concert LPs. And these were LPs which were kind of officially produced, but they weren't for public sale. They were for radio stations, for broadcast. And there was one from 1972, one from 1975, and I think also the Nebworth 77, was it, or 78 concert was on one, I think. I'm not 100% certain there. Anyway, that we've got this stuff here. Then we've got clips from Sounds of the 70s and Top Gear, which used to be a music program on the BBC, probably a decade before the name returned as a motor program. Interestingly enough, here you can see these are the posters from the 77 or 78 Nebworth concerts, which aren't featured on this album, interestingly enough. But anyway, that's kind of side 1, and I will show you this while, because this is one thing that I do find mildly irritating, so I will share that with you. Record 2 kind of fits in here, which it's an annoying way of getting a record out, to my mind. And then record 3 sits in the back as you would normally expect. But if I just go through the whole track listing of the album here, and this is where it really piqued my interest. So, as I've already said, side 1 and 2, mostly early stuff from the Gabriel era. But then the second half of side 2, all of side 3 and all of side 4, it's not the complete concert, but it's most of the concert from the Lyceum Theatre in London in 1980, and that was recorded on the 6th and 7th of May. They played the Lyceum Theatre in London. Now, for me, that's particularly kind of poignant, because in fact, the one and only time I ever saw Genesis live was in 1980 in the Southampton Gaumont, which would have been in April, I think. And so just, 3 or 4 weeks before this concert, but same tour, same lineup, same set, etc. And seeing as it's my one and only time I saw Genesis, I've been long keen to get a recording of it. So to see this as an official release, over 2.5 sides. It isn't the complete concert. The complete concert is included on the CD version, though. There's only a couple of tracks that they cut out. So that was of real interest to me. Side 5 and 6 is pretty much Wembley 1987, and then some couple of tracks from Nebworth 92. And this is the sort of, Mama and subsequent albums. Well, Mama was a single on Genesis, wasn't it? 92. No, 82. And honestly, by that point, I'd lost interest in Genesis. So that's, it's kind of interesting, but it's not the reason I got it. Really, the reason I got it is this, the Lyceum concert in 1980. And just to show you what... I mean, as you know, you can get bootlegs. They're not legitimate. They're not authorised. This is a bootleg I got some time ago. Typical bootleg type of thing with just a really crappy paper cover, and in this case, an extremely crappy. I mean, I don't know whether this is going to get picked up here, but the vinyl quality is shocking. Handwritten labels and it's shocking. So this is that same concert that takes 2.5 sides of this. So I have, I've got it, and I've played it. I've probably played it once, just out of nostalgia, and it was good fun to play it. It really was. It brought it all back. But as is typical of bootlegs, and the other stuff on here that I mentioned, the early stuff. I mean, if I run through, what I'll do is I'll run through the tracks on here now. So we got side 1. We've got from the Paris Theatre in London, the Musical Box 72, and it sounds pretty good, to be honest. It's now the Musical Box. For Genesis fans, again, of course, I'm a huge Genesis fan. They were my first favourite band. I think I mentioned before on this channel, the first gig I ever went to was Peter Gabriel in 1980. The second gig I went to was Genesis in 1980. The third gig I went to was Steve Hackett. So you couldn't get more Genesis stuff than that. So this is 1973, Genesis Live, and it's, of the Gabriel area, this was the only live release. And or the only official live release, and it's not the world's greatest sounding record. It is a bit muffled and a bit murky. If you hunt out the large Hatter version, which it looks very similar to the small Hatter version, but the large Hatter is the original pressing of this, and it's this. His hand here. Is sort of finishes well up above the spindle hole on the small Hatter. So this is kind of the best one to get of Genesis live, but it isn't. Any Genesis fans out there will have heard it, I'm sure, and agree. It is not, in hi-fi terms, it's not the greatest record ever made, but brilliant fun and like an archaeological record of our favourite band kind of thing. So the version on here of the Musical Box, it sounds very good. It's I wouldn't say it's better, but it's really not bad. Then we got into Stagnation. Harlequin and Harold the Barrel, different sessions. Stagnation from 71, Harlequin and Harold the Barrel from 72, but this is for the BBC Sounds of the 70s programme. So they're fresh kind of live studio recordings, and they kind of sound a bit like demo recordings, in so much as they haven't got the polished production and all that of the studio versions, but because they kind of, they are in a studio, they are live. What you get is you get a real intimacy with the vocals, and the vocals layering, the lead vocals and the backing vocals. They're absolutely vividly there for you to hear. So again, this whole first side is really fascinating, and even on the quality grounds, it's not disappointing. I mean, you're not listening to the most pristine recordings ever made here, but great music by a supremely good band. And then we flip over onto side 2. We've got Get 'Em Out by Friday, which again is great to hear, and then, interestingly, Wembley Arena, 1975, Watcher of the Skies. Now, I actually think that sounds better than the version on Genesis Live, which, is a couple of years earlier. But that was on the... I'm not really proud of all these things. You shouldn't, these are bootlegs, but, typical thing, crappy cover, plain label. This is a 75 tour bootleg. I've got other ones here. We've got 73. They're all mixed up. There's all sorts of strange stuff on here. This is 73 with some 77 stuff. They just people are collating these things and producing them. Not professionally, not licensed, but they generally sound bloody awful. So that's, again, this is one of the reasons for getting this. It is licensed, it is official, and even the worst sounding tracks sound a darn sight better than they do in this format. So for me, that now, this has absolutely no reason to keep at all. It really doesn't, and so I shan't, frankly. Only thing is they're a bit dodgy to sell, because you shouldn't have them, you shouldn't be selling them. So there we go. But continuing on. So we got Watch for Skies. Then we get to second half of side 2. We get to Dancing with the Moonlit Night and the Carpet Crawlers from this Lyceum gig in 1980. And as I mentioned, that was it was the first Genesis gig I'd ever been to. It was actually the second gig I'd ever been to in my life. And the first one was Peter Gabriel. And it's kind of funny because I bought a T-shirt at the Peter Gabriel gig. Not an official one, funny enough. An unofficial one outside. Being my first gig, I didn't really know how it went. And there's some guy punting T-shirts, and I bought one. And I wore it to my second gig, which was this Genesis gig. And I managed to get Tony Banks, Phil Collins and Mike Rutherford all to sign my T-shirt. Mike seemed to think it was quite funny. Phil was thoroughly up for it, but of course he just played drums on I don't think it had been released then, but it had been recorded on Gabriel's third album. So him and Gabriel were obviously a bit more pally. And Tony Banks, he kind of he was very much bugger, the other two have done it. I'll look a complete and utter what if I don't. So he did, sort of somewhat under duress. And then a couple of months later, I saw Steve Hackett also signed it, and I did get a selfie when someone else took it. I did get a picture of me with Steve Hackett signing that. But sadly, that T-shirt and those photos have long been lost and thrown away. I have still got this from that era. There's My Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which I took along. I think that by the time of the third gig, I'd sussed that if turn up early, hang around the stage door, take some records, and you can get things signed. So Steve Hackett signed My Lamb Lies Down for me, which is very nice, very proud of. But anyway, getting back to that the Lyceum gig. So it's the Duke tour, and I actually don't mind Duke as an album. I think it's far better than Genesis, the one with the yellow cover with Mama on it. And I haven't honestly. I might have Abacab as well, but it's really Duke is the last album of Genesis that I kind of really like at all. And I'm far more of a Gabriel era Genesis fan, although I do think that, you can't deny Trick of the Tail and Wind and Wuthering are superb albums. And I actually quite like And Then There Were Three. I mean, if you compare Genesis to Yes, who are very much contemporaries, and my other favourite band of the era, my fourth gig I went to see was John Anderson, incidentally. And I much, much prefer And Then There Were Three to Tormato, put it like that, in another league. So anyway, the Lyceum gig, here we are. We've got Dancing with the Moon at Night, Carpet Crawlers, Behind the Lines, Duchess, and just, I mean, honestly, listening through to this, it literally brought tears to my eyes. I know I've got that bootleg, and we did. Saturday with Joe, my partner, we went from, we were flipping backwards on side 1 and 2 between the earlier bootlegs and the Genesis Live, and then for this Lyceum gig we played. I mean, we only played like half a track of this bootleg, which, as I said, there was a reason I bought it. I don't, I'm not proud to have bootlegs really, but I bought it for personal, nostalgia reasons. And the sound quality of the bootleg compared to the sound quality of this is absolutely bloody shocking. The sound quality of this particular Lyceum gig, which I say is almost half of this whole set, and it's definitely the prime reason I bought this. And it's great. I mean, it really, really, really is great. I can't knock it at all. It's it's live. It's not as it's not as polished as a studio album, but it's punchy. It's tight. It's clear. It's dynamic. It's got that great live energy to it. And I'm almost half tempted to buy the CD set of this as well, just so I have got the complete concert. But there's only a couple of tracks missing. Turn It On Again is one of them, and Squonk, I think that might be it. Jury's out. The trouble is, it's like 50 or 60 quid for the CD box set. Not that this is cheap. This was about 45 quid, 50 quid. They certainly know how to charge on these things, but it's a nice set. Anyway, going on from there. So that's sides 2.5, if you like, 3 and 4. Side 5, and as I say, this is beyond my period of really being that interested. But you've got 4 or 5 tracks from Wembley, and basically you've got Mama, that's all, Home by the Sea, Second Home by the Sea, which is kind of largely the Genesis album, which is it's a good album, so I won't knock it. But it is recorded at Wembley Stadium, and something has to be said about Wembley Stadium, and I feel this about all, football venues, stadium-type venues largely. The sound is shockingly bad at these venues, and obviously these are taken off the desk, but there's still all that feedback, and the acoustics that are, hang on, I've seen a few gigs in Wembley Stadium, but the acoustics are just shockingly bad, because you've got sound reaching you from different speakers that, they're so far apart, it can be half a second behind one another. It's just muddy and horrible. And by contrast, I have got, I can find it, hang on. I've got this, which was a Record Store Day issue 2 or 3 years ago, limited to 3,000 copies. And this is just 2 tracks from Nebworth in '92 when they went back there. Mama and turn it on again. And the sound quality of this on the Mama track compared with the sound quality of this, I know we're talking different gig, different year, blah, 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 different venue, but it is, you know, this sounds fabulous, this sounds shocking. But, you know, it's a Wembley gig, so it's always going to sound a bit shocking. The last two tracks on here, No Son of Mine and Driving the Last Spike, are actually from this gig, the Nebworth 92 gig, and sound noticeably better. So it's, you know, I'd say good sound, you know, interesting sound, good sound, far better than bootlegs. The sound of the 70s things where it's very intimate, sort of, you know, the stagnation is quite lovely. I mean, it really is quite a thing to listen to. Get them out by Friday. It's all good stuff. Thoroughly recommended for those first sort of archive tracks. On the CD set, you get a lot more of that. A lot more. Then you've got the Lyceum gig, which for me personally was you know, second ever gig. It's going to always be special. So for me, that really makes this whole thing worth every penny. And if it had cost double the price, I still would have bought it just for that, because, you know, it's a ticket back in your memory, isn't it? You know, to really relive it. And the sound quality compared with the bootlegs that are already out there is in another league, so cannot be argued. Then you've got the Wembley gig, which takes up a side and a bit. And it's just Wembley. I mean, you know, we're talking Wembley Stadium here, not Wembley Arena. And Wembley Stadium is somewhere I shouldn't do gigs there. I mean, I've seen the Rolling Stones there twice back in the 80s. That was, you know, it was mind-blowing for the spectacle, the scale and the size, but sonically, just no. And then some Nebworth stuff, which again, it's, you know, I bought that because it's Genesis and it was limited, and, you know, I would. But, you know, it's okay. Now, I do believe on the box set, you get more of this Nebworth, more of the Wembley, and I think there's also another Birmingham concert from, let me just have a quick look somewhere that they've slotted in, but it's yeah, it doesn't. It's not something I'm gonna. Yeah, 98. There's some Birmingham NEC shows, so I'm not really interested in the extra stuff. It would be nice to have the full Lyceum concert, but you've got 90% of it here, and it sounds really, really, really bloody good. I will say I find the layout of this quite irritating in a way. How you kind of start, you know, you've got 2.5 sides of a 1980 concert. It would almost be better if they'd made it a 4-disc set and just stretched that out and made it over 3 sides and added a couple bits in. But, you know, yeah, so if you want to kind of relive a concert, you're playing bits of sides and sort of jumping back and forth. But that's kind of, you know, the negatives are the layout in a way and the sound quality of the Wembley gig. But, you know, these are kind of archive documents. You're not going to buy this unless you're a fan. And if you're a fan, you're probably going to buy it anyway. And if you're that much of a fan, you've probably got bootlegs of these things. And I have to say, you know, I've got a bunch of bootlegs. I've got a few more, and they are the sound quality here is way, 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 way better than bootleg quality. Way better. So in that respect, it's kind of like an official bootleg, 3 sides worth of, and really, frankly, worth having. It's a nice thing from a collection. Got a nice cover. Lots of, you know, there's some nice pictures. There's all the inner sleeves. I can pull them all out, I don't think, but they're, let's have a look. You know, it's all Nebworth 78 it was, not 77. You know, there's some interesting text, some articles, some comments, and all in all, really nice. If you're a Genesis fan as much as I am, which is, you know, a lot. I'm a big Genesis fan. Then it's you know, it's an absolute no-brainer, and can't recommend it highly enough. So there we go, Genesis, the BBC broadcasts. I would love them to release the whole of the Nebworth 78 concert. I do actually have a bootleg tape of that, which sounds great. And I did notice, doing the research of this, that Lyceum gig, the 1980 Lyceum gig, was released as a DVD. And I don't have that. I've never seen it, but my God, I'm going to have to try and hunt that down. So here we are, a blast through the past, an amazing trip down memory lane, and you know, for me, at least, well, for me, the whole of sides 1, 2, 3, and 4 are priceless. I could live without 5 and 6, but that's really me, and my Genesis enthusiasm ebbed away quite quickly after Duke, frankly. So there we go, Genesis BBC broadcasts. If you like Genesis, you'll like this. I'm quite sure of it. In fact, if you like Genesis, I would say this is kind of essential. And on that note, I will say cheerio, and thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you again soon for my next video. Bye for now. Bye.